Have you ever been traumatized so severely by an ex-lover that you had no choice but to seek trauma therapy? Has a past relationship haunted you to the point that it had spillover effects on any new love you found? If the answer is no, consider yourself blessed. But if the answer is yes, then you and Pete Davidson have something in common. Let's look at the life of the comedian post being part of the Kardashian mania. For starters, the curse of the Kardashians. It's no secret that shortly after the beauty mogul divorced her ex-husband, she decided to rebound with Pete Davidson. You know what they say about funny men, right? Laughter is the quickest way to a lady's heart, and we all know Pete is skilled at being funny for a living. And perhaps that's why, even though the duo was unexpected, they seemed incredibly happy together. But the happiness was short-lived, because after just a few months of being together, the two finally decided to part ways sometime in August this year. Looks like Mr. Davidson ran out of jokes to keep her amused, but even as we joke about the circumstances of their breakup, we'll have you know that the whole relationship stressed out our lad Pete to the point where he genuinely needed medical intervention. Sheesh. It's like the Kardashians have a family curse. Anyone who comes close to them burns. The comedian should have thought twice before featuring on an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. But hey, that's the price you pay for flying too close to the sun, Pete. Something tells us that the man is yet to learn that lesson, but we'll get into that later. Next, why did Pete need therapy post-Kim? From what we heard, the relationship was sweet and playful, and there was a lot of friendship involved in it. The Saturday Night Live star even went as far as to befriend Kimmy's little babies and got several tattoos to show his devotion to her. From what we've seen, the man literally treated her like a queen, as he should. But even the best of circumstances can lead to unfortunate outcomes. Ever heard of the phrase, right person, wrong time? Well, Pete and Kim are the perfect examples of that. The two broke up on very amicable terms and decided they'd be best friends. Their schedules just wouldn't align, and they had very different priorities in life. But now you're probably wondering, if the relationship wasn't bad and if the breakup was friendly, then why in the world does Pete need therapy? Hey, don't be mean, guys. Men need to process their emotions too, okay? But then again, trauma therapy for a relationship that lasted only a few months? Sounds a little too much, no? Okay. We may be acting a little bit harsh and insensitive, but that's because we already know the punchline. And the punchline is it's not Kim who gave Pete trauma, it's actually Ye and his little army. Let's look at Kanye and his never-ending bullying antics. Okay, so now you know. In fact, everyone knows this. Pete has been taking trauma therapy for several months now, mostly because he's trying to process the hatred and negativity that he was made to endure at the hands of Yeezus. Yeezus' wrath hit Davidson like a social media lightning bolt. The Donda singer left no stone unturned to terrify and threaten the comedian for being involved with his ex-wife. He even came up with a derogatory name for Pete. Can you guess what it was? It was Skeet, guys. I have to give him points for creativity. Anyway, Kanye did it all, from death threats to humiliating animations to berating nicknames to calling him a wife stealer. He only backed off when Kim asked him to calm down, and even then he only asked his fans to not hurt him physically. Yikes, that must have been a hard experience for our little SNL star. Good thing he had Kimmy to hold his hand through it. Moving on, is the Kardashian curse impacting Ratajkowski and Davidson? Earlier this month, pictures of this new pair of lovebirds started doing the rounds, and Emily was never afraid to be as spontaneous and open as Davidson. They had no qualms about the PDA either, and honestly, we think they make a cute pair. What about you all? Either way, from what we hear, even though the relationship is in its early stages and the seeds of their love are still in the budding stage, the two really seem to be enjoying each other's company. But like all relationships, this one is also haunted by the ghosts of previous lovers, and in this case, of course, their superstar ex-husbands. From what we hear, Pete is taking this one slow. The two haven't decided to be exclusive yet, and while they may not be afraid of being seen in public, both parties have kept a hush-hush when it comes to talking about one another. Looks like Davidson has learned his lesson and is in no mood to rush in head first this time. And hey, this is probably a good thing because Kim isn't the only one with an intense ex-husband. Mr. McLaren can definitely do a thing or two more than just produce movies, so Pete better watch out. Okay, we're kidding, but it takes time to recover from so much public involvement in your personal life. It makes sense why Pete wants to be a little quiet about this. Let's look at their dynamic in more detail. The spillover effect of his little drama with the Kardashian clan isn't restricted to just the speed of their relationship. Pete is the kind of happy-go-lucky guy who doesn't think too much. We look at his big smile and those big puppy dog eyes, and we just know that he's a hopeless romantic. But post-Kim, Pete knows better. The relationship seemed to have really allowed him to mature a little because it almost seems like he's a bit afraid to go all in a little too soon. That's why this time around he's supposedly made a personal choice to not bond with Emily's son. So those little babies are seriously missing out on the chance to hang out with Uncle Pete. Guess we have Kanye to blame for this paranoia. But this whole situation has really got us wondering why all these freshly divorced women seek out the SNL star as their rebound. Probably because they need good humor to make up for the lack thereof in their last relationship. Coming up, how did Davidson end up with Emily? Now now that we're finally talking about their relationship, it's important to give you a little bit of context at least. But before we get into the stirring pot of this hot new couple and their hot new romance, we really want to take a second to commend Mr. Davidson on his game. It's like he has one big win after another. The man never misses. We really want to understand his game. Goodness knows we need it. Okay, now that that is out of our system, we can get back to the subject at hand. You'd be surprised to know that the roots of the relationship between Em and her new love interest were actually long before we imagined. In fact, she kind of sort of manifested this, because believe it or not, Emily was all praises for Pete in a talk show last year in November. Just 1 year later, he's her man. Whew, a woman must really have some magical abilities. But hey, we don't blame her for appreciating and praising Pete for his charm and vulnerability. She even went as far as to call him lovely, and we think that's very sweet of her. What are your thoughts on the new couple? Lastly, what's in store for the new couple in the future? You're probably going, whoa, slow down there, because no one enjoys answering the big bad questions. Ever have someone ask you stuff like, what are we and where is this going? It's a terrifying prospect, especially for most of us in the very beginning. When things are new and fresh, that's how you want to keep it. But hey, our job is to speculate and spill tea, and that's what we fully intend on doing even in this situation. Then again, it's still too early for us to assume anything. We just know that Emily was in the news for dating Brad Pitt a few months ago, but that sort of fell through because another man caught her attention more. Whew, Pete must really be charming to have pushed Brad out of the picture like that. We also know that the two are head over heels when it comes to spending time with one another. Recently, Mr. Davidson was snapped leaving Emily's home late at night. Hey, to his credit, he tried to stay as incognito as he could, but there's only so much a man can do when he's 6 foot tall and has a very distinct looking beard. So far, all we know is that they challenge one another. They have chemistry and they're just having fun. Only time can tell where this is headed. And on that note, it's a wrap for today. What are your thoughts on the blooming new romance? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. See you next time.
It's really great. Rice. It comes from rice. It grows your hair back.
More in my hands and in my control, so those failures feel more like road bumps than like huge losses, and I feel less impacted by other people saying no.
Writing, hopefully not on the screen too much. My dream is just to like write stuff and be able to produce with my friends.
Since I haven't eaten carbs or sugar in about 3 weeks, we're eating pizza and donut party back at the hotel.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Obviously with Lauren Michaels about your tattoos.
Yeah. He doesn't like them. Oh, he's never said that, but he'll drop like hints. Like one time we were out to eat and he was like, so you got a wolf tattoo.
We live in Tribeca, so there were like so many kids on the streets dressed up and he was just looking around, loving it. It's amazing.
Swimming?
What's the worst pickup line you've ever heard?
Any pickup line, really.
What's the first thing you notice about someone when you meet them?
The way they carry themselves.